part of the British Sky Broadcasting Network.
Coming up on this edition of NHRA Today, a preview of eliminations at the Goodies Mid South Nationals. Spending time in the lanes with Jack Ostrander. The Jet Set Festival of Thunder and Fire. And the Music Man from McDonald's Land. From Memphis Motorsports Park, these stories and more on this edition of NHRA Today. The city of Memphis is a city known for music, especially the blues. And each year when the NHRA Winston Tour visits for the Goodies Mid South Nationals, some of drag racing's best have had reason to sing the blues. 2 years ago, Bob Glidden handed a win to Warren Johnson when the Motorcraft Ford driver forgot to pull top gear in his newly installed 5-speed. And then just last year, Pat Austin had his staging lights accidentally turned on by a frog that crawled into the beams. And that distraction contributed to a second-round loss to Michael Brotherton. But despite these heartbreaks, the blues also came through in '92, as each of last year's winners, Corey McClanathan, Warren Johnson, and Al Hoffman, had the color in their paint schemes. What shade will we see in '93? Today, we'll find out. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of NHRA Today. I'm Steve Evans. In the next half hour, we'll bring you up to speed on what's been happening here in the home of the blues. We'll also introduce you to top fuel racer and bowling alley operator Jack Ostrander. We'll attend a jumbo jet shootout, and you'll meet a music mogul who loves to go drag racing in his spare time. But first, I'm sure you're all anxious to know what's going on here with eliminations only 90 minutes away. So let's start with Pro Stock and Dave McClelland.
Steve, for the very first time this season, the Oldsmobile driven by Warren Johnson is not atop the standings in qualifying in Pro Stock Eliminator. That position is occupied by the Mopar Parts Dodge driven by Scott GEOFFRION. Scott, are you surprised by the performance of your race car?
No, I'm not, Dave. You know, my guys from Wayne County, they've been working real hard on this Mopar Parts Dodge, and if we can just put 4 good runs together today, boy, I'll be happy.
All right, you have yet to win your first national event title. Can it come here at Memphis?
Oh, it sure can. You know, I really think that it's just a matter of time, and if we put those consistent runs together, I think we'll be sitting fine at the end of the day.
Well, we wish you the very best. It'll take 4 good ones to win this race.
It sure will. Thank you.
Right now, here is Frank Hawley with the story and the #1 qualifier in Funny Car.
John Force used the Friday night qualifying session to his advantage as Austin Coyle set his car up perfectly for that 526 #1 qualifying position, and he backed it up with a 527 in qualifying also.
Frank, you know how it is. You drove funny cars, and luck is a major deal. But that one session Friday was very critical to running low ET, and luckily it did hold. But it's going to be an edgy racetrack here today, and it's going to be Austin Coyle is going to have his work cut out for him. Let's put it that way.
Have you got any sorts of strategies going in for setting the car up?
No, we're just going to, you know, we try to build 5,000 horsepower, and the rest is in clutch management, and hopefully as a driver I can help them leave on time and work the pedal out there in a little bit. You know, we both learned that from match racing.
Well, good luck. Now let's go to Steve with the Top Fuel low qualifier.
Thank you, Frank. I am coming out of a very happy trailer. The guys in here have seen their driver, Scott KALITTA, qualify #1 in Top Fuel for the 2nd race in a row. In fact, you have the 2 best times down this racetrack, a 491 and a 493.
Yeah, after a slow start, we got it to run 8 cylinders, and it was not only the quickest, but it was the most consistent. So hopefully, you know, today we'll be able to keep that up and win the race.
Some people were surprised you didn't even run the final session on Saturday. Was that confidence or what?
Well, not necessarily, but we just didn't feel with the atmosphere and conditions and the track being run on all day and the air being a little bit better, it might have held and run better, and it may not have, but it wouldn't have mattered today.
Go get them.
Thanks.
As you probably know, John Force is riding high on a win streak that sees him on top of the Winston points. 4 victories in 5 national events. That's awesome. But 1 year ago, right here at this very race, John experienced the most frightening incident in his fiery career.
Memphis was quite a deal. You know, the car was on a pass. It was in a final against Hoffman, and about 1,000 foot camshaft broke in the car, and naturally it was dropping cylinders. There was a lot of pressure on the motor, and the motor broke, or whatever went first, but fire was out the bottom, the motor hydraulicked, and it burnt the rear tires off, and that's what got me in trouble, because the car was sideways at over 280 into the wall. But that's the good side. When I hit the walls, when I took the body off, and then I was backwards looking at the start line at over 200 off the end of the racetrack. But safety safari was right there, and I was out of the car okay. We were out of complete race car. We were out 150,000, but I was alive and well, and as you know, we came back.
John wasn't the only driver to feel the heat at this race in 1992. Jack Ostrander used up a fair portion of this facility in stopping his top fueler after an engine fire burned off his parachutes. In fact, as Dave McClellan now tells us, this quiet man from Michigan has had more than his share of thrills.
NHRA Top Fuel dragsters represent the pinnacle of power and speed. Known as the kings of the sport, racing top fuel means competing with such fabled veterans as Ed McCulloch, Kenny Bernstein, and Eddie Hill. Without the resources of a major sponsorship, being competitive at this level is, to say the least, challenging. But for Jack Ostrander, the need for speed has always been his driving force.
Well, I got started in drag racing back in the 50s, just going to drag strips here in the Detroit area. After that, I raced boats, and then I went from boat racing into car racing, using the motors that I had out of the boat.
When not behind the wheel of his Nitro dragster, Jack can be found here at his home in Pontiac, Michigan, or down the street at the 300 Bowl bowling alley, where Jack's involvement spans virtually every phase of the operation.
My job around here is kind of a little bit of everything. We have 52 lanes here, 4 or 5 people on a lane, and if they're looking for any place to eat or drink or whatever, they normally end up in our restaurant or one of the bowling bars. It's full, like for the 32 weeks through the winter. I mean, it's full just about every night.
With the 300 Bowl proudly displayed, Jack and his team travel from race to race for little more than the love of the sport.
The reason why I can probably go and make all these races with NHRA is because of all the friends and all the help that I have. I have no paid crew, and everybody works as hard as I do to make this thing happen. We go along as good as we can, and we have a good time.
Jack and his all-volunteer team have weathered their share of storms, enduring a series of violent crashes, including one fiery incident at the 1991 Autolite California Nationals.
The motor came apart, and a rod went through a tire, and the tire pulled the wing down, and it turned the car into the guard wall. And from there, the car went upside down, and I don't remember anything after that.
But late last season at the Texas Motorplex, all the hard work paid off as Jack piloted the 300 Bowl dragster to his first ever 4-second run. Then earlier this year, Jack blazed to a remarkable 486 elapsed time at the Slick 50 Nationals. While Jack and his team may not have the deepest pockets in the sport, this is a team rich in courage and heart. And as long as there's a quarter mile to be conquered, it's safe to assume Jack and his crew will be there.
Well, I'm not planning on quitting. This thing's gonna keep on going for a while, I think.
You know, I'm not the only commentator live from Memphis. Every evening of the race at 5:50, live and direct from the McDonald pits, Ed the Ace McCulloch is on with sports anchor on Channel 5, Harold Grader. Is that fun? You like it?
Actually, Steve, it is a lot of fun. I did it in Indianapolis last year with Don Hines, and we did a promotional thing here with Channel 5, and it was a lot of fun to do. And to be able to go live, it's sort of fun. You know, I get a little bit of feel of what you do.
Do you find the local sports guys are more informed on drag racing than they used to be?
Boy, a lot of them really are. They do their homework, they read up on us when we're coming to town, and they know what they have to do.
Get your hand away from my mic. This is my mic. Welcome back to the Goodies Mid South Nationals presented by TNN. As frequent viewers of this show, I'm sure you're well aware of how closely involved NHRA drag racing and the Nashville network are. But there's another link between country music and drag racing.
5 after, okay with you? 5 after is fine. Great, thank you, Dean.
As tour director for one of the biggest acts in country music, Jay Edgar's job can best be described as the detail man. He's the guy that figures out when, where, and how the legendary Oak Ridge Boys get from one place to another.
We're here today, we're gone later today. You know, we're doing it all the time. So, and every show is a national event for us because, you know, we aren't going to be coming back to that area for a year or something like that.
Before joining the Oak Ridge Boys, Jay worked on several motion pictures and TV shows. In fact, his introduction into drag racing was through the lenses of a TV camera at the U.S. Nationals. He was a cameraman for ABC's Wide World of Sports during the 70s. 3 years ago, while on tour with the Oaks, he met some NHRA officials who invited him to come back and see a race.
I was at the Gators several years ago, just kind of walking around, just seeing how the whole thing was happening, and Ed saw me.
And Jay really showed a lot of interest, and at the time I didn't know, but he had gone to Hawley's school, and he was really up on drag racing and knew a lot about what was going on.
One thing led to another, and I got to assist, you know, cleaning the body, helping change tires and stuff. They kept going round after round, and I kept getting to do more and more, and they ended up winning that event.
Since that race, Jay's association with MCCULLOCH has grown, and he has become a welcomed addition to the McDonald's team when his schedule permits.
We always look forward to having Jay come and help us at the racetrack. As a crew chief, I shy away from having a so-called fly-in mechanic, but Jay's a much different person. He has this glow about him. When he shows up, it seems to transfer into our entire team. So we do get excited when he comes, and he actually does a real good job for us.
While helping McCulloch during the 1991 Winter Nationals, Jay drove in a celebrity race as a last-minute replacement for a comedian who couldn't attend.
In between rounds of working on the funny car, I would go and drive in the Celebrity Challenge, which was kind of neat because Kenny Bernstein was the coach. Budweiser was sponsoring the event, and I got a big kick out of it.
At the U.S. Nationals that year, Jay was presented with the hardware for winning that celebrity race with the Oaks at his side. It was a big day for Jay and a big day for the Oak Ridge Boys.
It was kind of neat because I got to go around and meet a lot of people. They came away breathless after first round of Top Fuel. I think it surprised them.
It probably won't be long before the Oak Ridge Boys get back to a race. After all, their tour director will already be at the track.
The weather today is partly cloudy, but if we should get a little shower, the Safety Safaris jet track dryers, they'll take care of it like that. And you know what? That's not the only time you'll find jets on a drag strip. In all of drag racing, nothing matches the jets for sheer spectacle. Recently, one of the largest fields ever of jet dragsters and funny cars gathered at Edgewater Sports Park in Cleves, Ohio for a unique event, a fundraiser for jet racer Tom Brown, who had been injured last August.
I'm really proud of all the jet guys coming in from all over the country that spent a lot of money and a lot of effort to come to run the biggest jet race ever without a dime in their purse.
Obviously, whenever you collect 20 outlandish machines and their flamboyant crews in one place, you get a kaleidoscope of color and a crescendo of sound. The Fire and Thunder Festival was also running on a different format, one geared towards eliminations rather than exhibition.
Most of the time it's just one other car that you run, or possibly two, but this time we're going to have 8 jet funny cars and 8 jet dragsters and run them on a regular ladder format like you do at a normal race.
Yet manhandling and racing the 6,000 horsepower turbine terrors is no simple task. Jet funny car driver Al Hanna has to operate 14 separate controls just to stage.
You go to max RPM and then light the second light. Max RPM, we're looking at somewhere around 18,000 RPMs. Light the second light, we're handling like 6,000 horsepower at that point. And on the yellow, we have to execute a series of 3 switches and a foot pedal. And what that does is lights the afterburner and then takes our fuel pump pressures and brings them up a couple of stages.
As eliminations began, several cars struggled with the brakes and the Christmas tree and red-lighted their way out of competition. But rest assured, the drivers were taking things serious.
This is the first time that this many has been together, so whoever comes away the champion in the dragster and funny car will be the king for the year.
The battle for the crown came down to the favorites against the underdogs. In the funny car category, Al Hanna was paired with Patrick Davidson's Under Pressure LeBaron.
It's probably going to take a small miracle, but we're going to try to find it. And hopefully I can go out there and, leave on them and stay ahead of them.
In the dragster division, Phil Smith was challenged by Dennis Roslansky's Crossfire dragster.
I'm not going to change anything on the car. The car's running real well. I do think I can out-ET him, so if I have to, I guess I'll run him to the back door and see what happens.
What happened was both drivers cut brilliant reaction times, but despite Dennis's backdoor speed of 291 miles per hour, it was not enough to take the victory.
I'm glad we could do this for Tom Brown. He's a good friend. I've known him ever since I've been involved with the Jets for 10 years, and this was all for Tom.
That sentiment was echoed by Al Hanna after he became the king of the funny cars.
We were the first guy to the fire when Tom got hurt, and we want to be the first guy to the finish line today. Pat Davidson's a great competitor. He was right alongside about the 1,000-foot mark. I'm sure it was a good run to watch, and it's going to be a great future for these cars.
Well, Al is not the only guy on this show who will be making predictions. Right now, let's join my colleagues for their Memphis prophecies.
Steve, as I told you earlier, Warren Johnson did not end up #1 qualifier in Pro Stock Eliminator. But just because he was #2 doesn't make his day any easier. In fact, he is on the same side of the ladder as his most recent nemesis, and that is his son, Kurt. They have met twice before this year, in the semifinals at Rockingham and in the final round 3 weeks ago at Atlanta, and in both cases, Warren won those races. Here, if they each win the first and second round of the racing, they would meet in the semifinals. For the story on Funny Car and his pick, here's Frank.
John Force may be the #1 qualifier in Funny Car at 5.26 seconds, but just a few hundredths of a second behind him in #5 spot at 5.30 is the Hawaiian Vacation Team. The owner's Roland Leon. The crew chief is veteran Leonard Hughes, and Gordy Bonin is the driver. Earlier in the year, they had some performance problems. Leonard was getting used to the team and the engine combination. Gordy was getting used to driving the car. They did get a runner-up performance at Rockingham, but the car wasn't all that fast. This weekend, they've really got the performance there, and Gordy's being sharp on the starting line. They've run a lot of 530s, and they're my prediction to go a few rounds in competition today. Now, here's Steve with a look at Top Fuel.
Well, Frank, picking Kenny Bernstein for success could hardly be called going out on a limb. At first, I thought about Eddie Hill, but Eddie Hill's pattern this year has been win a race, go out first round the next race, win again, go out first round. He won the last race, so I don't like his chances first round. Now, you'd think Kenny Bernstein, with all the pressure he's under, he's got 2 more cars remaining to qualify at Indianapolis today. His NASCAR car with Brett Bodine is out at Sears Point racing there. Bernstein thrives on that kind of pressure. He's #2 qualifier, 300s behind Scott KALITTA. Bernstein's reaction time is good enough to make that up sometime during the day. I'm going to go with Kenny Bernstein. Certainly not a dark horse, but I think it's time for this team, with all this talent, to get back on track. For all of us here at NHRA Today, see you then.
NHRA Today is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.
This is Sky Sports, a part of the British Sky Broadcasting Network.